Hello all, Pit Bike Mike. So today we are going to be doing an oil change on this 2023 Kawasaki KLX 230 Supermoto. So we'll go into some quick stuff real quick. We got oil filter 52010-1053 and the filter O-ring, which is 92055-1577. Alrighty, so let's take a look-see on how hard it is to do an oil change on this. Which, it's not hard, but there is a step that's a little funky. But we will get to there and explain it as we get there. So, as I'm getting set up here, I'm going to post up on the screen the location of the drain plug. It is a 14 millimeter. Gotta take that out real quick because, help make things work a little bit better. So, some people, experts, whoever said experts are, definitely recommend to have your motor a little warmed up before doing said oil change. Now, could I have warmed it up? Absolutely. Will I? No. So, it is how it is. It's not like I'm in a rush. Alright, as that's draining on down, we'll wipe it down a little bit with this little rag. Gonna stand it up on its, kind of even it out a little bit to help kind of get that oil up out of there. Shake it. Obviously, you don't need to be shaking the bike, but I do it just to give me something to do while I'm sitting here contemplating life. So, as we are sitting here, the bike doesn't hold that much oil. It's like 1.1 quarts if you do not change the filter, 1.2 quarts if you change the filter, which today we are going to be changing it out. So we are going to be at that 1.2, which, let's take a look-see, right? So 1 quart, what is that, like 32 fluid ounces, give or take? American. So if that's the case, 1.2 would be roughly 6.4 ounces if you're trying to be exact, which, if you want to be awesome, if not, you just got to make sure you're centered on that sight glass so you're not causing mayhem and destruction. So as I'm waiting for that to finish up, we are going to crack this filter housing open. It's a 8 millimeter and 8 millimeter bolts. Now this is where the fun part comes in. So I'm going to talk it through while we're doing this. There is a spring behind said oil filter. Now, that spring is not held in by anything, which I think is a terrible, terrible design. Now, when you're putting the new filter in, the manual, right here, says to put a bit of grease on the back of the spring, right? And after you do that, it will hold in place long enough, supposedly, for you to be able to fit the filter in place. This does take a little bit of time breaking it free, but there we go. Look at that, all nice and free. Filter's not too bad looking. Which I change my oil pretty frequently. The manufacturer for this, Kawasaki obviously, recommends your 600 and then like 7,000 roughly, or 7,600. It's, for an air-cooled motor, I feel like that's a little extreme. Let's see, this is my fourth oil change, something like that, and I'm at like 4,000 miles. Some say, why do you do that? I ride my bike hard. Obviously not hard like some people where I'm doing hardcore wheelies and stuff, but this little motor lives at high RPM. So, better safe than sorry, right? Alright, so, going on. Here is the filter housing. It has to go in a specific way because there is oil, what's the word I'm looking for? Journeys? Galleys? Something like that. Up in there, so you can see number 1 and then number 2. Now for the spring, as you can see, hopefully see, which, now that's lovely, right into the drink. So as you can see right there, there is no space that holds that spring into place. So, like I said, the manufacturer recommends grease. I do not. There are ways to do said oil change without putting grease. What I do, if you have a second person, whether they are a willing participant or semi-willing, what they do is they will actually lean the bike over, kind of resting it on their thighs, to lean it over far enough to where you can put the spring into place, put the filter and all that, and lock it right on in. It works. The fiance helped me do it, so yeah, it works. It's a tried and true method. What we are going to do when you have nobody but yourself, I don't recommend this. Well, I do recommend it, but I don't, because you may damage your bike if you are not careful. I am going to place some cardboard on the ground, and I am going to ever so gently lay it on its side. So, let me get this cleaned out, get a new O-ring slapped on this thing after I drop it in the drink again, and we will continue. So as you can see here, we're using something that's not going to mar the metal. And look at that, the O-ring is already falling apart. And yet the shop wanted to say, because they do not carry the O-rings for some crazy reason. Look at that, isn't that terrible? It's falling apart. So I was like, oh, I need a new O-ring. And they're like, oh, you can reuse the one. Technically, yes. Is it recommended? No. I have, obviously, because, it's me. What do you expect? But, since I already did the oil change once before, without changing this, I was like, I am not taking the risk again to try to slap that back into place and not have an oil leak. And, let's be honest, the O-ring cost me like $4. I ordered it, and the shipping was more expensive than the O-ring, so I ended up ordering 2, just because I was like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna have this bike a while, I might as well do it, right? Yeah, right. Alright, nice and clean looking. Alright, now that the bike has been sitting and the oil has drained probably more than enough, we are gonna reinstall the drain plug. And look at that, I'm doing it without eyes. Isn't that great? Alright, now, if you want to go off of torque specs and all that good stuff off of a drain plug, it is 11 foot-pounds. I just snug it up. You know, you kind of have a feel for it. Obviously, you don't want to be Superman and just yank that thing out and just decimate the poor threads, but neither here nor there. So let me get this thing snugged on up, and then we are going to do the fun part. Alright, I am obviously not going to show the part of me laying the bike on its side, just because if I do drop it, many expletives will come out of my mouth, and nobody wants to see that. So I am going to ever so gently lay it on its side. Like I said, put some cardboard down to help protect the bike, just so you don't damage it too much. I also kind of recommend having lower fuel. Me, personally, I don't know what the fuel level is. I'm not going to check because I just don't want to know. Alright, now, once you have the bike on its side, I know, looks a little scary, doesn't it? Just take your time. It's not that big of a deal. Just be very careful. Like I said, cardboard helps out a lot. And as you see, I'm taking a smidgen of oil, greasing it up a little bit, you know. Oh yeah, nice and lubed up. Alright. This piece goes on like that, clips into place, all nice and good. And then if you don't lose your spring, alright, now that I have the spring and it's cleaned off, I'm going to gently place it in. See, look at that. Look how it just sits in there, and so much better than it would otherwise. And like I said, these oil journeys have to go in a specific direction. Alright, and just gently push it into place. And let's get these bolts started by hand. And yes, you definitely want to go and start it by hand. They're very thin threads. You definitely don't want to cross thread it and cause massive issues. Now, the owner manual for this bike recommends. So, the owner's manual recommends, as you're tightening it up, to, you know, switch between the two bolts multiple times to make sure you're getting a nice even seat. Alright, snug and snug. And because I purchased it, and, you know, when you spend money, you definitely want to make sure you get your money's worth. 87 inch-pounds torque wrench. So we are ever so gently snug it up, keep on snugging, keep on changing between them. Oh, and there's number 1 and number 2, and we're just going to double check again. 1 and 2. There we go. Look at that, torque to spec. Now we're going to pick the bike up from the floor, and we will continue on with our oil change. Alright, now that we have the bike stood back up, the oil filter is on. Hopefully you have a clean funnel. We are going to start off with, because like I said, the bike takes 1.2 with an oil filter. So we are going to do Kawasaki KPO fully synthetic 10W Forte. Obviously you all can use whatever you prefer, but 10W Forte is what it calls for. They recommend Kawasaki oil because why wouldn't they? And just because I have all these warranties, extended and otherwise, on this motor. Which I know some people are like, oh, that's a, what do you call it, scam. Not scam, but, oh, you're just throwing your money away. Whatever. It wasn't that much, I don't think. But either way, I have it. So as we're filling this up, you know, they say after you're done, you run the bike, check it, and then I would personally go for a ride. But because I live in one of those states, counties, cities, whatever you want to call it, as soon as they even hear the word, or you even hint at the word snow, man, they take all that salt brine and just dump it all over the road, like a lethal amount. It just, I don't know, it's just too much. It is just too much, I say, I swear. Now, like I said at the beginning of the video, you know, what is 0.2 of a quart? Well, in theory, 6.4 ounces. If said bottle actually holds 32 ounces to a quart, supposedly. So, because, you know, I want to be extra special, I have here 99-cent little measuring cup, and I filled it up to 5 fluid ounces, which I know I said 6.4, but you know, 5 is good enough. So let's dump it in, see what happens. I know, right? Being so scientific, being so exact, it's... Are we really watching the same pit bike mic? Who the hell knows? Alright. We have it filled up. So, let me clean this off. Put the drain plug in, stand it up on its, you know, to where it's even. And let's check to see what the oil level looks like. It took a while because it was cold. We are pretty much almost to the top of the, you know, the full line. Because you got the 2 lines. It looks good, right? Alright, now for the moment of truth. The most scary part of any oil change, right? I probably shouldn't be doing this with a closed garage door. But hey, you know, who cares about carbon monoxide, right? Actually, I will crack it just a little bit. Alright, fire in the hole. And so as we have it running, we are going to be looking around here for oil leaks, making sure that we have a nice tight seal. So I'm just cleaning around it, all the excess, just making sure we're nice and dry. Alright, we've been running for like a minute or so. You know, even though I did crack the door, I'm slowly, the air is getting thinner. So, we are good. Look at that. Wasn't that successful? I think that was successful. So, what did we learn? The owner's manual way of doing it, like I said, the grease and the spring, I tried it. Didn't really work too well. I put the grease in and it held, but it slowly just fell down. And I'll be honest, it didn't give me a warm, fuzzy feeling. I wasn't confident about trying to put it all in place and doing all that. Now, like I said, with a helper, holding the bike to the side so you're not laying it on the ground, that is the most preferable way to do it, in my opinion. Now, if for some crazy reason you're all by your lonesome and you're like, you know what, I need to tackle this right now, you can lay it on its side. Now, obviously, you do that at your own risk. I'm not responsible for whatever you do to your own bike. But that is how I have done it. And this is my second time doing it that way. And it works. So, results may vary. Do all the legalese talk. Alright, now that the bike has been sitting for however long, let's just double check the oil level again. We'll get it upright. Alright, all. So, that was the oil change. After everything's said and done, I had to use a quart and 8 ounces for me to get to the in-between of the 2 hash marks. Obviously, the numbers are approximate. Sometimes you have a little bit more oil come out, sometimes you have a little bit less. It's whatever. But for me, I had to use 1 quart and 8 ounces for me to get into the middle of the sight glass. So, simple oil change. Can't really complain too much. The biggest downfall to the oil change on this bike is that spring. But besides that, yeah, that is kind of it. If y'all own this style of bike, the KLX 230 line, which the dual sport of this year uses the same motor, and don't hold me to it on the actual dirt bike. I don't know if that's any different, but at least for the Supermoto of this year and for the dual sport of this year, obviously this is the proper, except for laying it on its side, proper oil change procedures. So, on that interesting note, I hope y'all like, subscribe. Pit Bike Mike is out.